Today we're going to be talking about 5 surprising issues that can actually fail your MOT.
A lot of people find surprising as a dirty car, tyre pressure sensors, engine warning lights, removing or tampering of DPF. You don't really notice if they're working or not.
Does that mean that the car is completely okay?
Game over, It's not passing MOT.
Today we're going to be talking about 5 surprising issues that can actually fail your MOT, including some that catch drivers out even when the car feels absolutely fine to drive. And you're going to want to stick around for the last one, as it sure did surprise me too. Let's get right into it. What is an MOT actually?
So an MOT is an annual roadworthiness test or exam assessment to make sure that your car meets its minimum legal requirement for safety and emissions.
To be on the roads?
Yes.
Yeah. Does that mean that the car is actually completely okay?
No.
Like mechanically?
No, so it doesn't. So it is, I think we have to remember, it is a minimum standard. So it is bare minimum going to be
absolute
safe.
minimum.
Yeah, the absolute minimum. I think with any garage MOT tester or mechanic would tell you that, you know, your MOT standard sort of down here, a service standard is...
There's a vast
difference between servicing and maintaining a vehicle and making sure an MOT can get through its MOT.
Yeah. So today we're going to be exploring 5 different issues that will actually surprisingly fail your MOT, that most people don't know that they can fail your MOT. Yeah. Which one are we going to start with?
So first, I think one that a lot of people find surprising is a dirty car. Yeah. So, and I think it can fail an MOT test before it's even started its MOT test. So when a vehicle first turns up, an MOT tester's first job is to go around the vehicle and make sure it's suitable for testing. Yeah. So basic checks are made to make sure all doors open and close, your boot opens and closes, your bonnet opens and closes. Yeah. The car's got enough sort of oil in it. If for any reason that you look inside that car or around that car and deem that I can't test this properly, so if you've decided that you want to try and store as many empty Coke cans, Monster cans as you want, stack them up on your back seat. If I then can't check the seatbelt seats to make sure they're secure,
can't have access,
anything like that, can't have access. If there's no suitable access, that's it, we can't test it. So it can fail before it even gets through the door of the workshop.
So let's take your car as an example. Yes. Does this qualify to be a dirty car on the test?
Only just.
Only just. So this is absolutely fine. So what you mean basically, it's not the exterior, it's the interior.
No. So if there's some big 4x4 mudslinger and they've decided to go down a dirt track on their way to the MOT station and it's caked in 6 inches of mud all around and you can see wheel arches are full of mud and stuff, that'd be another reason again. If I can't inspect all the suspension components, tyres, brakes, if I can't check all that properly, that'd be another reason for me then not to be able to test it. So.
Okay. And let's be clear about this. That is a reason for you to refuse testing the car.
So it'd be a refuse to test. It wouldn't even be a, this has failed the MOT. It's a, this is why I'm not testing your car today because I can't test it properly. Yeah,
but can you fail it or can you not fail it?
You can't fail it because you wouldn't even get that far. You wouldn't even log it on to test.
Okay, so it's just a reason to defer the test or cancel the test.
You can log that you've refused to test it. Normally, you just give the person presenting the vehicle the chance to go in, clean it, empty it, give it a sort out. Then they can bring it back and we'll have another go.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Let's move to point number 2.
So next one, I think if we look at, again, it's a newer one that's becoming quite regular, is tyre pressure sensors. Yeah. Again, it's a bit absurd, but they've decided it is a safety issue. Most cars now, almost all new cars now have tyre pressure sensors on them so that you can see when one of your tyres needs inflating or if the pressure's a bit low. Yeah. You can walk around that car and see 4 perfectly inflated tyres, but if there's a warning on the dash telling you that it sees a malfunction with that system, that's it, game over. It's not passing an MOT.
Yeah, and this is the newer system, it's not the older system, the one that, because there are some systems on older cars that just tell you that there is something wrong with the tyre pressure of one of the wheels. Yes. Or one of the tyres, sorry. Yeah. But not a specific tyre, not a specific PSI. No. So but the newer systems do tell you to that extent of detail, and you're talking about those systems that are in newer cars.
Yeah, again, it can get a bit confusing because if the tyre pressure light's on indicating that your tyre pressure is low, that's not a reason to fail it. But the light might be on. It's if there's a light on with a warning message saying tyre pressure monitoring system malfunction or warning, it's got to be a clear indication that there's a fault with that system. Yeah. So again, it just causes sort of an extra bit of confusion with people.
Yes. So if there is a light on, but then you inspect the actual tyre and it's inflated properly, it's on the right PSI, right pressure.
You still fail it.
Do you still fail it?
Still fail it.
So
because it's indicating a fault with that system.
Okay. So basically saying that this is probably about the fact that if the system indicates that everything is fine, but the system is not working properly, and not everything is not fine, then it's an issue. So you must make sure that the actual system is working properly, because it could give you the wrong story.
And you do find we find again on the service side of the workshop that when we're getting a lot of cars, so a lot of Fords are a good example. They seem to be, so each tyre pressure sensor has its own internal battery which can't be replaced.
Can't be replaced.
Can't be replaced.
So the whole thing has to be replaced.
The whole sensor has to be replaced. So they've got they've got a life of about 10 years, around about 10 years. Again, I guess it depends on usage and sort of.
Aftermarket stuff can last for a bit less? Or there isn't an aftermarket?
There's not really. Well, I say we don't see them all that much yet. Again, the ones we've been fitting are aftermarket, but they've been pretty successful. I think.
So 10 years is about reliable.
10 years is about good when you check them.
And how much are they? Just out of interest.
So supplied and fitted, they're just under £100
each.
So that's well, no. So that's parts, labour.
Okay.
Parts and labour for fitting them, about £100. If you went into a dealership, you're looking at £130.
It's a sizable amount of money.
So yeah, especially if you then decide there's 4 sensors that need replacing, because if it is found that the sensors are at fault, if you need to fit 4 of them, that is quickly a hefty bill for a very small part of the car.
Yeah. Point number 3 now. What is it?
Point number 3, we're going to talk about engine warning lights.
Okay. Engine management light as well.
Engine management light, engine warning light, EML light. That's what it gets a lot of different names. A lot of people turn up with them and go, engine light's been on for the past 11 months. But it's been running fine, so it should be fine for the MOT, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, it fails MOT, I say almost every time. Petrol cars have to be checked if they were registered after the 1st July 2003. It was 1st July. And diesels didn't come in then until 2008. Again, I think that was the 1st July or September.
So any petrol vehicle that was registered after 2003, that date that you said, if an engine management light comes on,
so when you
fail it.
When you turn the ignition light on, the engine management light should illuminate for a few seconds, then go off. If it doesn't go off, if the light stays on when it's running, anytime during the MOT test, it's on. That's it fails the MOT.
But petrol cars pre-2003, you can't fail it. Okay. And how about diesels?
Pre-2008, can't fail it. You don't check it. Basically.
Interesting. Is this because they're linked to other systems? I'm guessing, like DPF and.
Yeah, so I think because DPFs was sort of pushed, it was around 2007, 2008 that they started to come in, when they started to get tighter on diesel emissions, certainly around that time. And again, the same for petrols. Again, it was all tightening up around emissions and getting a bit stricter on that. So you'll find, let's say, although you could do an MOT and it sails through an emissions test, because that engine warning light's on, they deem that could then affect the emissions at some point. It might not be right away or right now, but still a light on, and whatever's causing that light on needs to be resolved. Yeah.
Again, similar point like the tyre pressure sensor system.
Yeah.
So basically,
not necessarily a fault, but it's indicating a fault, so that then needs to be repaired.
So if there's a problem with the sensor, you fix the sensor, make sure the sensor is reporting properly.
Yes.
And now we move to point number 4.
Leading on from the engine warning lights, EML lights coming on. We've now got the sort of removing or tampering of DPF, diesel particulate filters. On exhaust systems. I mean, any exhaust system being messed about with, of course, because that's where all your emissions is coming from, and that's something they're really starting to crack down on and want us to sort of pay particular attention to, because we're getting a lot of, obviously diesel vehicles with DPFs that are being tampered with, messed about with, being removed, mapped out, straight exhaust systems put through to get rid of them, and of course that's a big fat no-no now, which we are starting to see more and more of. I think a big thing we're seeing is people are having faults with these systems, and rather than repairing the fault, they're just going, let's just remove the lot and we can't have that issue anymore. But of course that's then when you come around to MOT, if it's sort of clearly indicated that you've done something, whether you can see the exhaust has been welded, it's been cut open, welded back up, shut back up, anything like that, and you see that going on.
Is a DPF bit like a bit that you can actually see from like underneath the car?
Depends on the vehicle. Some cars you can. Now newer models, newer vehicles, they're putting the DPF up right by the engine because they need the heat. So they want it as close to the engine as possible so they can get the heat into it. I mean, to be fair, we had one only last week, a Range Rover. Young man bought it a year ago with an MOT from a car trader. Of course, clean ticket, was all good. He's come here for his first MOT. First thing I've spotted is that the DPF's been tampered with. And I think the estimate he was given to repair the fact that DPF had been tampered with, and the inside had been knocked out, and it had been cleaned out, and it had also been remapped. The bill was as much as what he paid for the vehicle.
I was going to ask, like, how much was the vehicle?
Yeah,
but he said it.
Yeah, but you weren't, yeah, it was beginning at, I think it was about £5,000 upwards, and which he paid that for the vehicle, and now he's stuck. Yeah. And of course, he now needs to sort out and decide. Well, he's bought the vehicle like it, thinking that he's going to be good to go.
This is actually an interesting point, because being an ex-RAC engineer, what would you advise people do when they're buying cars? Because I'm guessing that you did a lot of inspections on like cars to be bought by individuals, right?
Yes. So like it's difficult because private sales and sales from or buying a car privately or from a dealer, of course, you get there's different laws and stuff, which I have a very basic knowledge of. But buying from a trader, certainly, by law now they have to supply you with a 3-month warranty. And there's also a right to give that vehicle back if you find any sort of major
that's not been fixed within
not been fixed or
time.
Issues with it, or if they've sold the car without sort of acknowledging known issues or faults or stuff. So even if you go and buy a vehicle, the best thing you can do is get it down to your local garage or someone that you trust to inspect that car, and just to make sure there's nothing sort of expected to fail or that's been missed or that's been tampered with. Because like I say, there's a lot of people now that will sort of get rid of a car, remove a vehicle from their responsibility with known issues, so that someone else can deal with it. Which we're seeing a lot more of. Like I say, with that young man there, he's faced now, what does he do with a vehicle that he's bought less than a year ago?
So a DPF could be removed, could be tampered with. There are other systems as well, like AdBlue. A lot of people do.
AdBlue system, again, it's all sort of linked, that if that's been tampered with, again, it can be mapped out so that it's basically not being used. It can be removed, but all diesel cars need them now, so you can't afford not to have them.
And when did that start becoming a requirement for you as MOT testers to just make sure that these systems are present?
So that's any diesel car from 2008 onwards.
And this has been since 2008, since they came out?
So there was a few vehicles fitted with DPFs pre-2008. I say they come in a few years before that, but it wasn't until after that then they started. It needs to have them. And they need to be functioning.
And now we move to our last point, which is the most surprising, we said, probably.
Yes, yeah. So
to many people.
Again, a lot of people don't think it's an issue, but lights mainly, reversing lights and your daytime running lights. Of course, reversing lights being a big one. I suppose you don't really notice if they're working or not, to be honest, because you never have to. You never stood at the back of the car when you were reversing it. But they need to work. So any car, I think we said from 2009 onwards.
So pre-2009, cars didn't have to have a working reverse light?
Didn't need reversing lights.
I didn't know that.
No, but we all know that majority of vehicles before then did have reversing lights, because they always have.
So this was always like a manufacturer's choice to fit the cars with?
Fit them, as a safety aspect.
And I guess other countries had some requirement as well.
Yes, so all reverse lights have to be working post 2009.
So any car, if you guys own a car before 2009, don't bother fixing the reverse light, because it's not required.
But then we've had customers that have asked for brighter reverse lights to be fitted, especially if they do a lot of driving in the dark. If you've got a rubbish reverse light, you go backwards, you can't see.
You can have a bit of a less rubbish view.
So it's one that people don't expect. And they go, I didn't know my reverse light wasn't working. You go, well, you don't have a chance to check it really, do you?
And the next surprising one was
daytime running lights. Again, most vehicles now fitted with them. Again, for the past 10, 15 years, they've been getting daytime running lights. But from 2018 onwards, that became a legal requirement as part of the MOT. Your daytime running lights need to be working. Again, it's just a safety standard for an extra bit of visibility.
But any car pre that date is an optional thing.
Yes, it's an
for it to
optional thing.
happen.
So a lot of newer cars now we're seeing fitted actually have LED daytime running lights on, which of course if they fail, they cost quickly.
In a lot of units, they come with the whole light.
So the headlight is now complete with the LED strip that is the daytime running light. So if that fails, it's a whole new headlight fitted. And again, I've seen prices of £2,500 upwards for one headlight that you're having to have replaced. Again, for a light that you don't really notice. It's just part of the car that functions. But when it's not,
and to a lot of people, that's just like kind of a fashionable thing to have.
Yes,
Not
it just
really
looks
even,
good.
doesn't even do anything.
Like I said, it does.
But obviously, the government decided this is like a safety feature that cars should have during the day.
Just
drive with that.
It's pure visibility, safety standard, as all things on an MOT are. It's making sure that the people inside the car are safe, and equally the pedestrians outside of the car are safe. So it's visibility and just to be a bit clearer on the road.
So Tom, there's loads more to get into there, especially around like advisories, grey areas of MOT, like tester judgment. So we'll definitely have to follow up on all the other topics that we talked about that we could not include in today's video. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section, especially if there is anything MOT related questions that you could ask Tom and he can answer in the next video. Catch you in the next one.